everyone. Welcome to our session today, celebrating cultural diversity and our shared humanity. My name is Philippa Rappaport. I'm the lead for education and engagement at the Smithsonian Office of Educational Technology, which is a central education office at the Smithsonian, and it's the office behind the Smithsonian Learning Lab. I'm joined today by Marjorie Hunt. She's an education specialist and curator at the Smithsonian Center for Folklife and Cultural Heritage. In today's session, we'll explore the center's award-winning story map, Masters of Tradition, A Cultural Journey Across America. This free multimedia platform features the stories of extraordinary artists from across the country who have been awarded the National Endowment for the Arts National Heritage Fellowship. That's the nation's highest honor for excellence in the folk and traditional arts. With its abundant photographs, audio, video, short text, and first-person quotes, students can discover and explore the great diversity of cultures, communities, and artistic traditions that enrich the United States, and be inspired to learn more about their own cultural heritage and the traditions of others. We'll focus today on grades 5 to 12 classroom applications for a variety of key themes, including immigration and migration, local history, identity, heritage, and community. Marjorie will also introduce the center's oral history interviewing guide to help students explore their own family histories. And you'll leave with replicable techniques and free online resources to help foster a shared sense of belonging, build cultural bridges, and bring people together. If you haven't yet gotten to explore the Masters of Tradition story map, you are in for a treat. This resource literally brings us all together on a shared map and showcases the beauty, wonder, and joy of celebrating traditions and working hard at our passions. In fact, Marjorie and the team at the Folklife Center were just awarded last month the 2023 Smithsonian Education Award for Innovation and Access. The story map was also honored with a 2020 Best Digital Tool for Teaching and Learning Award from the American Association of School Librarians. So just a few logistics as we dive in. If you'd like to, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know who you are, where you're from, what you teach if you are teaching. You've likely joined us today on the Smithsonian Learning Lab. That's an online platform where you can discover digital museum resources from across the Smithsonian and beyond, and then create interactive learning experiences with them. Today's session is one in a series that we call Cultivating Learning. This is a monthly offering in which featured educators model teaching techniques for using digital museum resources to support student learning in diverse learning environments. What you're seeing here is you can find the Cultivating Learning session on our education page. There you can also find step-by-step instructions for how to use the lab. We have YouTube training videos, and we have live and archived professional development sessions on that page. So I'll put that link in the chat in just a sec. This is what the page itself looks like. The session today is really meant to be interactive, so we would love for you to join us with your comments. If you're joining us through YouTube, you can comment over in the far right, or if you're joining us through Facebook, you can use the comment section in the bottom center of your screen. So what we like to do in this series is start us off with a question. And today's question is, if you were to pass on a family story that speaks to your cultural heritage and sense of identity and belonging, what would it be about? And I'll put that in the chat also. And as your comments are coming in, I'd love to turn it over to Marjorie.
Great. Thanks, Philippa. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm so happy to be with you all today for this session. My name is Marjorie Hunt, and I'm an education specialist and curator and folklorist with the Smithsonian Center for Folklife and Cultural Heritage. And Philippa, thank you for that great introduction, and also for this wonderful opportunity to be here with you today, and everyone who's joining us in the audience. So welcome. I'm thrilled to have this opportunity to share the Masters of Tradition story map with you. And I'm looking forward to today's session being as interactive as possible. So please, share, post any questions or comments in the chat, and we'll be looking for them. And I see that we're joined by, Michelle, who teaches high school Spanish from Chicago. Great. And Shelley, who's co-founder of Rosa America. And Abby, a former ESL teacher. Anyway, welcome everyone. Really glad to have you with us. So, and thank you for taking some time to respond to the opening question. I know that, and I realize that all of us have many family stories that are important to us. There's no one story, but if one of your favorites comes to mind, please share it. We'd love to hear from you. So while you're taking the time to think about that and respond, I just wanted to give you a little background information about the Smithsonian Center for Folklife and Cultural Heritage. And I'm just seeing a family story about your grandmother's survival, Michelle, of World War II in the Philippines. We'll come back to that. But the Center for Folklife and Cultural Heritage, or CFCH, as we call ourselves, is a research and educational outreach unit of the Smithsonian. So we work collaboratively with communities in the United States and around the world to encourage the understanding and appreciation and vitality of humanity's diverse living cultural traditions. The center was founded in 1967, so we're now 56 years old, and we do many different things to fulfill our mission. We produce the annual Smithsonian Folklife Festival in the National Mall. And in fact, this year's festival is about to start in just 2 days, June 29th through July 9th. So if you're in the area, I encourage you, we'd love to see you come down and visit us at the festival. We're featuring 2 great programs on the traditional culture of the Ozarks region, and also a really great program called Cultural Encounters, Living Religion and Religions in the United States. So love to see you. We also at the center have the Smithsonian Folkways Recordings, which is the institution's nonprofit record label documenting the diversity of the world's music and spoken word heritage. We have the Ralph Rensler Folklife Archives with hundreds of thousands of sound recordings, photos, videos, film, fieldwork documents, all of which we've been very diligently digitizing to make them accessible to the public and to folks like yourselves who would like to use them. And and we also have a very robust research and education series of initiatives, and which are all grounded in community-oriented approach to research that shapes our public programming, like the festival, and the educational materials that we create, including lesson plans, documentation guides, online exhibitions, and other types of digital museum resources, like the Masters of Tradition story map that we'll be talking about today. So I think, Philippa. Oh, thank you, Philippa. Has been posting some, I think, useful links in the chat if you're interested in learning more about the work of the center, including a listing of our free online cultural education resources. So I just would like to extend a big thank you to Philippa Rappaport, Tess Porter, and and the Smithsonian Office of Educational Technology team for this wonderful opportunity to be here with all of you today. So I wanted to just return for a second to see if we had any responses to stories, family stories. So Michelle shared about your grandmother's survival of World War II in the Philippines, which I'm sure is an amazing, amazing family story. You know, as I say, we all have so many stories that can speak to what's important to us. I myself could share that I would want to pass on to my kids. I have passed on to my children the story of my grandfather, my mom's dad, Pasquale Peronacci, who immigrated from a small village in Calabria in the south of Italy to Philadelphia at the age of 18 in 1922. And he worked as a poor bricklayer in South Philadelphia, where he met my grandmother, Gretchen Ryan Biebel. So the daughter of Irish, first generation Irish and German immigrants. Is very much the American story. And so they had a love of dance and went off and danced on the vaudeville circuit for a while before he became a successful builder, and sort of brought pretty much everyone, his family and just about everyone from Bottolato, this village of Bottolato, Italy, to Philadelphia. So I have tons of Italian relatives there. But that's just one story that speaks to who I am. And I guess the point we wanted to make with this question was that all of us everyone has, we have traditions and heritage that are meaningful to us, cultural, regional, family traditions, and the story map is really about that, sort of that humanity that we all share. And so I guess without further ado, Philippa, I think let's transition to talking. Unless there are any questions. Cody says your family is from Calabria as well. I pass on the pasta dish that we always made for family gatherings and Christmas Eve. I didn't learn from my father when he was I didn't get to learn from my grandfather either, but I understand he was an amazing cook and taught my mom. So she made his recipe for spaghetti, which we have all tried to learn, but it's not written down. And she was always like, it was so, we've tried to replicate it. So that's fabulous. Thanks so much for sharing.
I think we'd all like those recipes.
Yeah, definitely. So with Philippa, maybe we could transition to just giving you some background about the story map. So the Masters of Tradition, A Cultural Journey Across America story map was first published by the Center in September 2019. That was its first iteration. And then followed by a new expanded version that was published in December 2022. And the story map is a interactive multimedia digital resource that highlights the great diversity of cultures, communities, and artistic traditions that enrich the United States. It features profiles of about 160 traditional artists from across the country. You can see them represented in these red dots here. And all of them are recipients, as Philippa said, of the National Endowment for the Arts, National Heritage Fellowships, which is the nation's highest honor for excellence in the folk and traditional arts. And so every year since 1982, the NEA has awarded National Heritage Fellowships to a broad array of extraordinary artists across the country for their valuable contributions to America's diverse cultural heritage. And so to date, there are over 400 individuals and groups who have received this award. And And these artists, they're really just remarkable, everyday folks, most of whom you've probably never heard of. A few maybe you have, but they care deeply about their culture, about their tradition, about their community. And what's really special about them is that they care. They work tirelessly to pass on, to practice and pass on these traditions. That they love in their communities and to others. So, and in doing so, fostering a sense of pride and respect. They build cultural bridges and sort of bring people together. So we hope that comes shining through in the story map. And I just did want to take a minute to say that that Masters of Tradition was created in collaboration with the National Endowment for the Arts, Folk and Traditional Arts Program, and also with Esri ArcGIS Story Maps team. And I should note that it's a custom map, and I want to give a big shout out to Esri's talented web designer, Lee Bach, and web developer, I should say, and their designer, Alan Carroll, who worked with me on the project. And also thanks to the great team at the center who devoted their time and talents to bringing the project to fruition. So it draws upon our vast holdings in our Ralph Rinsler archives, Smithsonian Folkways recordings, the Smithsonian Folklife Festival over the course of 50 plus years. And many of the Heritage Fellows represented on the map have been participants in the festival, or they've are Folkways recording artists, or in many cases both. So yeah, there's a great connection to them, and we have a lot of materials that we've tried to bring to light through this story map. So the overarching goal of the story map was at its very core just to sort of highlight and bring recognition, celebrate the great diversity that enriches us, diversity of cultures and communities and traditions that enrich us as a country. But embedded in the stories of each of these artists are themes that can be brought to the fore, having to do with immigration and migration, or identity and cultural heritage, local history, intergenerational teaching and learning, and the passing on of treasured traditions, skills, and knowledge. So, and much more. So it's a great resource to sort of go through and unpack. So today, I wanted to explore the story map with you and suggest some techniques for using it as a teaching tool in the classroom, and also get your thoughts on how you might like to explore the map with students and have learning projects in the classroom. So, and finally, I'm just want to say that I'm really excited about the story map being able to serve as a catalyst for to inspire students to want to learn more about their own cultural heritage and the traditions of others around them. So, Philippa, maybe we could go to the story map, the Masters of Tradition story map on the center's website. There it is. Yeah, so this the story map, just very quickly, it's embedded on the Center for Folklife and Cultural Heritage website as a microsite. And I just wanted to quickly point out that in addition to the map, which we'll launch in a second, we're hoping that the entries on the map will spark students who want to learn more. And so we pulled together lots of value-added educational content. So there's a video gallery with full-length videos on artists that are featured. There's Folkways music playlists that you can hear whole songs, and they're annotated, and also that's you can listen to them for free, and also access their links to the all-important educational liner notes that accompany every album on Folkways. So there's a lot to learn there. There are articles from the center's website and festival that go into a great deal of depth about these traditions and artists, and also in a related resources section that has online websites, podcasts, videos. And so, if one of your students, if their interest is really sparked to learn more, we've got resources for them to begin with that are easily accessible. But if we scroll back up, Philippa, we can, if you hit launch map, this is going to take you to the title page for the story map. And if one were to
so I just have to switch screens, everyone, because I can't get the sound if I continue that way. So I'll be right back while Marjorie's talking.
Yeah, and we want that because there's a lot. There's a lot of audio, video, photographs. So it'll be fun to kind of take you through some of the featured artists and communities on the story map. But yeah, so just quickly, if you were to click introduction, your students could, there's a one-page description of the story map that basically goes into the information that I've just given you about its themes. And but when you click explore map, which we'll do right now, it should take you to the story map, which
all right. We tried this. Of course, it didn't happen, but it did work in practice.
It worked in practice. So this is like, what law is that, Philippa? If it can go wrong, it will.
Things will go wrong. Okay. You keep to hold on. I'm going to stop presenting and bring it back again. Just a sec.
We'll bring it back. Yeah. So anyway, well, Philip is trying to get us to the story map, so we can go through some of the entries. Again, I just wanted to say that the site that it's embedded in Folklife has a great deal of resources where students can learn more. We purposely kept the entries quite short to spark, to inspire, spark interest, highlight major themes that each of the artists are addressing. But there's really informative and engaging resources that students could then turn to. So let's see if this works. Ta-da! Yay, you did it, Philippa. It's tricky. So yeah, here you have the story map. And this so I just wanted to let's dive into it. So we want to sort of go on a cultural journey with you, and I just wanted to point out that there are three main ways that one could navigate through the map. And the first is you can navigate by going to that side panel on the right, and which is organized alphabetically by the artist's last name. So Philippa, let's click on Michael Alpert. Michael is a renowned Yiddish musician and singer and Yiddish language advocate from New York City. And also I wanted to point out, you could see when you click on an artist, it zooms into their location. And so the story map could also be a very useful tool for teaching about American geography. And as you watch us move through the map, you'll see how it zooms into locations across the United States. But Michael grew up immersed in Eastern European immigrant Jewish music and culture in his family and community in LA. And he's a native Yiddish speaker and has helped spark a revitalization of Yiddish cultural arts, especially through klezmer music, as he says. When we went looking for our roots, many of us found it in klezmer. And I just want to take this moment to show out that each entry on the map follows the same pattern. So it begins with a portrait of the artist, And a big shout out to wonderful photographer Tom Pitch for the vast majority of beautiful photographs on the site. And then a short first person quote. I really believe in the artist's voice being able to shine. And then, as you see, the text is very short. We just want to inspire and spark interest and to some high level themes. And then for every musician, we have a short audio clip, and in some cases video. And then for every craftsperson, we have tried where possible to have examples of their artwork. So we'll click on the audio for Michael Alpert, which is a klezmer wedding song from a Folkways recording album. And I'll just quickly say that while we don't link outside of the story map, we wanted to keep visitors to the map within the world of the story map. We took great effort to give you detailed captions so that you can easily find this album, this recording, the educational liner notes, just by, it's all there in the caption. This is from Folkways, and you can find this in the online Folkways catalog. So yeah, Philippa, let's play the audio for Michael's wedding klezmer. Like that gives you a sense of that tradition. So there's Michael. There are other Jewish and Yiddish artists featured on the map as well. You can also explore the map by clicking on any one of these red dots and by just rolling the cursor over them. And Philippa, if you take us to that red dot that's just to the right of Minneapolis, I think it's Suring, Wisconsin. It should come up. There we go. Yeah, so we have Betty Pisio Christensen. She's a Ukrainian American egg decorator, and I just love this picture of her. It speaks volumes, but she's second generation Ukrainian American Pysanky artist. Egg decorating is called Pysanky in Ukraine. And she was born and raised on a farm in northern Wisconsin that was homesteaded by her parents, who were first generation immigrants from the Carpathian mountain region of Ukraine. And she learned the art of Pysanky from her mother. It was traditionally, they were created during Easter time. And if you scroll down, you can see a photo of her beautiful Pysanky work. So very detailed, and she says that each egg could take 7 to 15 hours to create. But the important thing throughout her life, Pysanky for Betty was not just about creating something beautiful, but it was really a representation of her Ukrainian heritage and her family's heritage, and she treasured this art form for that reason. And then, Philippa, if we click out of Betty, we can the third great way, one of my favorites actually, is to navigate through the map by using the search function. So you, at the top right there, you see the search, and you can search by the name of the artist, by their location, usually town or state, their artistic tradition, culture group, or the year they received their award. And so, yeah, it's a super great search because it's not case sensitive. You just have to start typing and it comes right up. But since we were talking about egg decorating, why don't you type in egg, Philip? And you see that we have 3 different egg decorating traditions. We have Czech and Ukrainian and Slovak traditions. And if you see, they're all located in the Midwest. And then another search we could do, let's focus on a culture group, maybe start typing Cambodian. So yeah, so there you go. You can see right away it came up. We have um, three artists represented: dancers, a musician, and a Cambodian American ceramic artist, Yari Lavan. And Philip, if you click on Yari, he has such a great story. So Yari Lavan, he's really, as I understand it, one of the three remaining master Cambodian ceramicists left in the world, and he's here with us in Lowell, Massachusetts. And Yari was born in Cambodia and learned his ceramic art there. One of the great masters. But when the brutal Khmer Rouge regime started targeting artists and writers and other cultural practitioners, Yari was forced to flee, and he spent many years in refugee camps in Thailand before being resettled in Lowell, Massachusetts. And what a great gift. He built this wood-fired kiln so that he could get the exact finishes to the traditional Cambodian ceramics. And he teaches and shares his art in so many different forums, and passing it on, teaching young people. And if you scroll down, you can see some examples of his just absolutely stunning ceramic work that he's noted for and is made. And in fact, about 5 or 6 years ago, before the pandemic, his work was featured in a exhibition at our National Museum of Asian Art here at the Smithsonian. They have a great collection of ancient Cambodian ceramics, and the curator there, Louise Court, invited Ari to have several of his pieces on exhibit there, front and center. So you had like the contemporary ceramic artist there with all of these amazing centuries old works. So that's Yari. And again, I just want to say what a gift that our country has this amazing tradition that's now part of this cultural mosaic that is America. And I also I wanted to point out something about the search function. It can be a really fun and instructive way to teach with the story map. In many cases, you can see and hear at a glance, just at a glance, the great diversity of traditions. So, like Philippa, if you were to just start typing in fiddle, there you go. So just in looking for fiddlers, you can see that we've got Cajun, Irish, Swedish, we've got Creole, we've got Ozark fiddler from Missouri, we have Appalachian fiddling tradition, we have Hispanic fiddling tradition from New Mexico, and even Apache a tradition from Arizona. So I mean, if there's time, we'll come back and explore this. But you could search, countless. You could search California or basket making, and you'd find this wonderful way of sort of getting at and being able to compare and contrast. There's differences, but also some similarities. And of course, in the case of fiddlers, each of them also have, in addition to their own cultural style, they all have their own personal style as well. So I don't know if there are any questions about the story map at this point, but if not, I thought we could move into sharing about some techniques for using the story map in the classroom with your students. And the story map is, I think we tailored it it's tailored to sort of grades 5 through 12. It's appropriate and I think instructive for social studies classes, for American history, English, music, art, ESL, geography, in even science. I mean, many of the native basket makers, for example, are just absolute experts in terms of their knowledge, plant knowledge, and indigenous knowledge of the natural world. So I've found that when I've used the story map in a classroom setting, that if possible, projecting the story map on a large screen in the classroom or whatever educational setting you're in works really well. This way, all of the students can experience exploring the map as a group, and so it becomes kind of a collective group experience with everyone on the same page. Of course, it could also work in a computer lab situation where every student has their own computer and they're navigating on their own. And I'll often start by taking students on a quick overview sort of journey to give them a sense of the diverse range of cultural communities and traditions that are featured on the map, and sample some of the media content that's there, just to sort of prime the pump. So I think a good place, often I've started with a Native American tradition bearer, one of our first Americans. So Philippa, we could go to Mary Louise Defender Wilson. I guess if you just start typing Mary Louise, she'll come right up. There you go. And Mary Louise is a Dakota Hidatsa tribal elder, storyteller, and language advocate from Shields, Dakota. And you can see how it zoomed right into North Dakota there. And she's one of about 20 different Native American, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian tradition bearers that are featured on the story map. And she was born on the Standing Rock Reservation and grew up steeped in her tribal traditions. And she works tirelessly to preserve and teach her Dakota language to young people in her tribe, seeking to give them a sense of their identity and pride in their heritage. And I think one of the great teaching lessons about the entry for Mary Louise Defender Wilson and a number of the Native artists who are featured on the map is the importance of language and to one's sense of identity and well-being, and the great efforts to try and preserve and reclaim, revitalize languages that are being lost, and what's lost when a language is lost. And as I love this quote from her, she says, I think when you live in a language, you live with a different view of life, a different philosophy. And so here for the audio, we have her telling a story in her native Dakota language and then translating a portion of it.
Hashia gnupa gi kiiaka bi dokid he ohie. Koshkanakawa pia echiapi. There was this young man whose name is Pia. Pia had a beautiful wife. Kaichuki Hopecha.
There we go. And it continues, and the caption gives you a sense of the gist of the story. But she uses storytelling as I think, as she says in her beginning quote there, that in telling stories, I help to restore a sense of pride and respect for our young people. So Mary Louise, as I say, is just an example of one of about 20 Native tradition bearers who are featured on the story map. But let's go to if you type in African American, we can search. There's about 25 different traditional artists featured who have just a great variety of African American traditions that they carry with them. And Philippa, let's go down and check out the Macintosh County Shouters. They're really there's look at this. I just love this picture of them. They're such a wonderful group. They're a spiritual and shout ensemble from a small coastal community in Georgia. And the old ring shouts and spirituals that they sing have roots going back to West Africa, that were brought to coastal Georgia by enslaved Africans more than 250 years ago. And the Macintosh County Shouters and their predecessors have been practicing this tradition and keeping it alive, since the time of slavery. And if you play the audio, you can see an example of a ring shout, which is characterized by sort of hand clapping and beating a rhythm stick. And as they get going, they'll start moving in a ring. So you can hear Jubilee, which is on a Folkways recording album about
Jubilee, Jubilee. Oh, my Lord. Jubilee in the morning. Our Lord, Jubilee. Shout, my children, you are free. Oh, my Lord. My God, back in liberty. Our Lord, Jubilee. Call me Sunday Christian. Oh, my Lord. Call me.
There we go. So that's the Macintosh County Shouters, and I think in the classroom, they're one of several artists that are featured that have these traditions that go back, that were brought over with people who were from West Africa who were enslaved. So the coiled sweetgrass basketry tradition, for example, in coastal South Carolina, or even the banjo is a prime example. I see a comment from our colleague and friend Betty Belanis about Tom Pitch's photographs really bringing places and people to life. That's so true. Thanks, Betty. Hello. And then if you were teaching a class in the civil rights movement, you might be interested in looking at the role of music and the arts in the civil rights movement. And let's go to Mavis Staples. So the amazing Mavis Staples, she's a gospel and rhythm and blues singer and civil rights advocate for activists from Chicago. She started singing at a young age with her father, the famous Pop Staples, and their group, the Staples Singers. And in the 1960s, they were inspired by Dr. Martin Luther King and became a powerful spiritual and musical voice of the civil rights movement. And Mavis recalls her father saying, quote, "I really like this man's message. I think if he can preach it, we can sing it." So that's what they did. And they really galvanized people wherever they went, and worked closely with Dr. King. And here we'll play some video footage of Mavis in 2006 when she received her National Heritage Fellowship.
I'm going to sing for you. We're going to sing for you the very first song our father taught us back in the 50s. I was standing by my window. It was on a cold and cloudy day, my Lord, when I saw the hearse come rolling, to carry my mother away. Will a circle be unbroken by and by?
It's hard to stop her.
It's hard to stop her.
Hard to
She's
hit
really
pause.
amazing. She's still got it. She's going strong. And then, yeah, so great. And then I did want to point out, we've got a number of American Latino cultural traditions featured on the story map. But, you know, it's not searchable by Latino because there's just, there's so many diverse and multifaceted communities and experiences of American Latinos in the United States: Puerto Rican, Mexican American, Hispanic, Chicano, Afro-Brazilian, Peruvian, and more. And it's not a monolith. So while we've got, you know, about 25 different traditions featured on the story map, you know, you can search by cultural group. And let's, Philippa, just to give an example, let's, if you type in Juan Gutierrez, Juan is, there he is. Oh, I just lost him. Juan Gutierrez. So Juan, he's absolutely wonderful. He's a Puerto Rican drummer from New York City, originally from Puerto Rico. And he keeps the Afro Puerto Rican musical traditions of bomba and plena alive and vibrant. He's a great teacher and advocate. He regularly shares his traditions in the New York public schools. He's such an inspiration for young people in his community. And so here we have a video of Juan and his group Los Pleneros de la 21 performing at the festival, the Smithsonian Folklife Festival.
Yo soy testigo policía, oye, dale macana, policía que se comió la colorada. Yo soy testigo policía, dale macana.
So sort of the Puerto Rican bomba and plena, and then sort of by way of contrast, we have Flacco Jimenez, who is a Mexican American conjunto accordionist from San Antonio, Texas. And you know, what's really important about this that I wanted to point out and underscore is that conjunto music is a uniquely American tradition. It doesn't exist anywhere else. It was forged from cultural encounters of German, Czech, Polish, and Mexican immigrants who settled in the Rio Grande Valley of a region of Texas in the late 19th century. So Mexicans who were living in the area were introduced to the German, accordion, and they adopted it and made it their own. And it's a very distinctive sound, completely different from German accordion. I wish I actually there is a German accordion player from Minnesota who is a Heritage Fellow. I don't have him on the map yet. I've got to expand it but if you could just hear the difference. But anyway, they made it their own. And conjunto music is, as I say, a very uniquely Texas, uniquely American sound. And I think that could be a really great teaching point in the classroom too, about the American experience and the cultural encounters, what happens when different cultural groups encounter one another, share traditions, and you get these unique traditions emerging from components of all of them. And so here's just an example, very different from the Puerto Rican pombo and plena. I think just the audio would be great, Philippa.
Is
Right,
that this one here?
That's that one, yeah. Again, on Folkways, Smithsonian Folkways.
1, 2, 3.
Maybe some of you are familiar with So yeah, Flacco comes from a very musical family. He learned from his father, who is quite renowned at the forefront of conjunto music, and his brother Santiago Jimenez was actually awarded the Presidential Medal of the Arts by President Obama for his contributions to our musical landscape. So, as I said, Juan Gutierrez and Flacco Jimenez are just 2 of 25 American Latino artists featured on the story back. And
I see we have a question. Can we search by Puerto Rican music, since we may not be familiar with individual artists?
Yeah, let's look. Let's search by Puerto Rico and see what comes up. We have, it's just one music tradition. We have Juan Alindato, who is a Puerto Rican carnival mask maker. He's from Ponce, Puerto Rico, which has an active carnival celebration. And then Emilio Rosado is a wood carver from up in the mountains. I've actually been lucky enough to visit both Juan and Emilio in Puerto Rico and see their beautiful work. If you click on Emilio, he lives just on a tiny little farm up in the mountain. He has lots of roosters and chickens on his farm and his property, and he loves them. And so he's created many, many, many carvings of his roosters. I think if you scroll down, there's another example.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So just a delightful person. And Puerto Rico has many, many wonderful craft traditions. This is just a few of them. The mask traditions are quite distinctive as well. They're paper mache, and they always they go through the streets during carnival time and making merry. And I think there might be a close-up photo of, maybe not, no, of one of Juan's carnival masks, but there you see it. So they actually use them as part of carnival. So thanks for that question. There are other Puerto Rican Heritage Fellows, and we have a list of Heritage Fellows and a link to the National Endowment for the Arts National Heritage Fellowship site. So you can search all 400 plus people who have been given the award and definitely find out more. I also see a comment from Maria, whose family is Greek from Sparta and Corinth. And food has always been the thing that we share from our culture that always creates an instant connection with all people. So true. And I think, yeah, foodways, my colleague Betty and I and all of us, we just, it is something that all of us have and all of us share. I was talking earlier about, my grandfather and my mom's, Italian, recipe for spaghetti, but food just is such a great connection. And I think sometimes, your students or anyone might think, well, I don't have culture, I'm not a fiddler or, but we all do, And it could be in the form of foodways or family stories that are passed down, family sayings. And so when we get to some of the projects that might come out of this, if there's time, I think that's, having your students interview members of their family or community about conducting oral history interviews. And, one of the great things to focus on is food, for sure. All right. And then I want to ask you to sort of, let's just give a shout out, though, to one of our earliest immigrant groups, the English and Scots-Irish from the Appalachian region. So, Philippa, if you typed in Appalachia, or started there, you could see there are quite a few traditions represented there, and so a lot of these folks, their family roots go back to the early settlement in the Appalachian Mountains in the 1700s. And if you click on Ola Belle Reed, she's an example of a couple of different things. So Ola Bell, she's a Appalachian banjo player, singer, songwriter from Rising Sun, Maryland. But she was born and raised in the Appalachian Mountains in Western North Carolina, and her family traces their roots all the way back to Scots-Irish, English immigrants who settled in that area in 1760s. But Ola Bell's family, like many others, they migrated out of that region during the Great Depression in search of economic opportunity. And so they moved up to northeastern Maryland and near the Pennsylvania border, where there were more jobs, where there was better farmland. And so there are a number of, there's quite a few transplanted Appalachian migrants there. And for Ola Bell's family in the summer, they would run like a camp where everyone could come and picnic and listen to music. And it was sort of all these homesick Appalachian folks who had left their home could come and celebrate together and feel this connection, this tie back through music and food and just, gathering and being together. And I think it's a really great example of migration within the United States and different reasons that might happen. Many of you know about the great migration of African Americans from the American South up to the northern, more industrial cities in search of jobs. So this is one example. So we'll play just a quick snippet of her iconic song, "I've Endured."
Born in the mountains 50 years ago, I've trod the hills and valleys through the rain and snow.
Yeah, thanks, Philippa. And then, I want to keep an eye on the time. I guess I was going to share, and maybe I will a little later, one of our most recent refugees, Rahim El-Haj, and his sort of great kind of American story. But first, I'd love to, after sampling the story map with the students and just showing some of the diverse range of traditions, I'll ask them, if there's a cultural group or tradition that they're particularly interested in learning about, and ask them to raise their hand and suggest something for us to look up on the map. So let me ask you all if you could jot down in the chat a culture group or artistic tradition that you'd be interested in learning about. Philippa and I will do our best to try and find it and show it to you. And maybe also you might want to say why you'd be interested.
I can get lost in this map for a very long time. I find it so fascinating to just explore.
If Betty's still here, I'll put Betty on the spot. Or I could,
it's okay though. I mean, people can explore.
And here's one. I'll start out since we were, and there's someone else who was from families from Calabria. Let's search. I'd be in, I would want to, if I were, I'd want to ask about. Let's search Italian American. Oh, Native American weavers. Ooh, great. We'll do that. So, okay. So from Calabria, we just very quickly, Giuseppe and Raffaella DeFranco.
Oh, do you want me to click on it?
Yeah, real quick.
Okay.
And we'll just, so immigrants from Calabria, if you go down, they brought with them their musical traditions from their small village in Calabria, which includes dancing, but you can hear just a snippet of Tarantella, the first piece of audio. So they did their best to preserve this music in New Jersey. So Native American weavers, we've got, maybe we could turn to let's see. Do me a favor and type Alaska. Terry Rothgar. Yeah.
Here, I put in just the
There she
beginning
is.
of Weaver. Yeah. Because you said not to do Native American, right? Because of all the different.
Right. So that's why I was so Terry Rothgar. She's a Tlingit weaver from Sitka, Alaska, and just incredibly beautiful work based on a lot of research. She actually did museum research and sort of rediscovered how to weave the Raven Clan blanket here, the weaving that you see, and she uses like goat's hair that she'll gather that's been left on fences and trees, and gathers that. She's also a weaver of baskets as well, and you know, it loves going out and gathering the materials, whether it's for her basket weaving or weaving of textiles. They're all expert harvesters and with great knowledge of these natural materials. So someone said, being from South Dakota, I'd love to see an artist that's highlighted from that region. Abby, definitely. Ooh, and the Geesbin quilters. We'll do that next too. So South Dakota.
Is that here?
If you typed South Dakota, it would come up.
Okay.
So you can search.
Don't test my geography here.
There we go. There we go. So yeah, Kevin Locke, he's a Lakota singer and dancer from South Dakota, and he's renowned for his hoop dance, which he demonstrated at the festival. We'll just show you a snippet of that. But he's also, again, just one of yeah, unfortunately, he just passed away. But again, just so devoted to sharing his traditions and trying to expand understanding of Native culture, especially his Lakota culture. Leah asked to see the Geesbin quilters. I'm so glad you asked that, because we were running out of time, but I wanted to share, if you type in Mary Lee, there she is. So the beautiful smiling face that was on our intro slide. This is Mary Lee Bendoff. So she's an African-American quilter from Geesbin, Alabama. And, this tradition is, it started very much, it's just a small rural community of quilters that used leftover scraps of fabric material from shirts and dresses to make, these beautiful quilts. But they've, and she and three total, she and two other elders of the community, Loretta Petway and Lucy Mingo, were given the Heritage Award. But their quilts were sort of discovered, if you will, and they're just extraordinary. The New York Times called them one of the most miraculous examples of modern art that America has ever produced. They're improvisational, like jazz. I think if you scroll down, you'll see an example of this is a quilt called Strips and Strings by Mary Lee Bendoff, which actually was an opening piece in a recent exhibition at the National Gallery of Art on Black artists from the American South. So they're extraordinary works, but the point was they started out, they were quilting for their own enjoyment, to keep their children warm to get together for quilting bees and quilt communally, which they still do. So thanks for asking about that, Leah. Someone had mentioned that they had Greek ancestry, and we do have an amazing Greek Byzantine wood carver featured. I think yes, Constantine Pillarinos. So originally from Greece, he he's passed away sadly, but we actually featured him at the Smithsonian Folklife Festival. He carried on this incredible tradition of carving, altar screens and pulpits in this very ornate Greek Byzantine style of carving, and just a true master. And I believe there are some photographs of his work if you scroll down. So there's one of his altar screens and a close-up of his work. Yeah, so quite an amazing tradition. Yeah. So Philippa, I see we're kind of over the hour. I don't,
Yeah.
I could quickly just, we did want to ask if, how you all could imagine using the story map in the classroom. We may have
And
run
we have
out
a
of time.
question that's come
Yeah.
in, Marjorie, that might help us transition to, if you want to just quickly show them the interview guide, perhaps. So
Yeah,
Ross
absolutely. I would
America,
love that. Yeah.
Ross America TV says, so could a teacher ask an Indigenous student, for example, if there is a cultural tradition celebrated in their family that they would like their fellow students to know about? Like
Oh,
cultural.
absolutely. And that would be such a powerful and beautiful way to do that. And I have two examples.
Can I just interrupt though for one sec? I don't think I would put a student on the spot though for that. I think
No,
I
I
would
think
put it
the
out
way
to
to
the
do it,
class.
I think, is to a better way to do it is to ask them to if they would like to conduct like an oral history with a family member. So not directly ask them to not to phrase it that way, that they'd like their fellow students to know about. But there's two exercises I'd like to share with you that I think could get everyone in the classroom sharing.
Should I switch back to
First,
the slides?
yeah, do you want to switch back?
Sure.
I wanted
Okay,
to
it'll just
let
take me a sec.
everyone, yeah, while Philip is doing that, I just wanted to let everyone know about a free online resource that we have on our website at the Smithsonian Center for Folklife and Cultural Heritage. Philip is going to bring up the slide and the link to it, but it's the Smithsonian Folklife and Oral History Interviewing Guide. So as I said at the outset, I really hope that the story map can be a catalyst for inspiring students, anyone really, to want to learn more about their own heritage in their family and communities, and the heritage of others around them, whether it's in their neighborhood, in their classroom. And so one really great way to do this, and that has been, this guide has been used, interviewing guide has been used in a lot of classrooms, is to ask students to conduct an interview with a family member. And this guide, it's actually, when you look at it online, it looks formidably long, but it's not really. It's quite short. It just has a lot of information added to the end about possible projects you might want to do. But it's a very concise guide to how one might get started, like, zeroing in on what it is that you might want to know, say foodways, or how the family came to be settled in the place that they are, or just settling in on a few like questions that you want to drill in on. And then there are tips for how to use recording equipment if the person that you're interviewing is comfortable with that. They may not be, and you would be taking notes. You always want to ask. And then just some best practices for conducting an interview, both before the interview, during, everything from tips to the kinds of questions you would want to ask, for example, that don't elicit just a simple yes or no answer, like asking questions that begin with how, what, and why, as opposed to did and do. And then best practices for after the interview, everything from how to organize and store your materials to writing a thank you note to the person that you interviewed. So this is a great way to get students, hopefully the story map would inspire them to want to learn more. And this interviewing guide has useful tips for how to do that. So it's free. It's the Philippa has posted the link, and there's so many things that you could have your students do with the interview and guides. We don't have time to go into all of them, but one could be to write an essay that uses first person voice of the person they interviewed prominently in the piece, or even if you have technically savvy students, to create a story map. You don't have to be a GIS, geographic expert to do a story map there. And Esri ArcGIS Story Maps provides free account to every K through 12 classroom in the country.
That's amazing.
So I think that information we'll put in the chat. So
Wow.
they could make a story map tracing their family's migration and emigration route, saying using family photos and stories, or a recipe book, or that's annotated and illustrated with family story. There's countless things you can do. And finally, I think getting to the question from Rosa America TV, a really great way to get students sharing in the classroom, and my colleague Betty and I have done. Betty Belanis is a education specialist with me at the center. Is the cultural marker exercise, and this is in the interviewing guide. You'll find it on the second to the last page of the guide, so it's available there. But I just love it, and it works so beautifully as an icebreaker to get students to know each other, to appreciate. So basically, the assignment is to ask students sort of ahead of time to identify and report on an object that serves an important role in their in their own cultural identity, whether that's regional, family, cultural, what have you, and then so to think about this object and kind of write a couple of paragraphs about it, and then come to class, then prepared to present for 2 or 3 minutes about the object and what it means. So, for example, it could be we had one person who grew up on the eastern shore of Maryland, which is a great. There's lots of corn being grown there, brought in, a kernel of corn. And it was very much about their regional, their local place and what that meant to them growing up there. I might bring in the other side of my family. I'm an Army brat, so I could share that I really don't have any place that I can call home, but my grandparents, my grandfather's farm in the Missouri Ozarks is one place that I'm really grounded, and the other is my Italian grandfather's hill village. Whoop, there it is. So you have the students share, each of them share for 2 or 3 minutes around the room, and in that way they get to learn about each other. And then if you want to go further, we have them break into pairs, and using the cultural marker exercise, what they've heard as a point of departure, they interview each other about to learn more. So they practice interviewing techniques, but it really is a wonderful way to learn about everyone and what they hold dear and the things that matter to them. And it could be a family heirloom, a photo, a piece of fabric from a grandparent's wedding dress, who knows? But I highly recommend this as an exercise to do in the classroom. And it always gets people talking and sharing. And then you can build on that to do, gosh, you could have people bring in, different food ways to share in the class. It can go on and on, but they do develop a kind of mutual understanding and of each other and where they're from and what's meaningful to them. So Philippa.
Yes. Thank you so much, Marjorie.
Thank you. And thanks to everyone. I know we've run out of time, and I know Philippa has things to share with you.
Here, I just want to quickly show you. So this link that I put in the chat is to a Learning Lab collection. It has all the resources that we've mentioned today. So you can find all of them in this one collection. And the link to the collection is also right in the description of today's session. So you should be able to find it in all different ways, including just by searching in the lab. Celebrating cultural diversity, right? Because it's a published collection. So it shouldn't be hard to find if you lose the link. So we can stay. If there are any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. If not, I just want to thank you all for coming. We're going to take a little break for the summer with our Cultivating Learning session, but we'll be back in the fall. And please always feel free to reach out to us. learninglab@si.edu. Marjorie, did you want me to put your address in the chat too?
I would love that. My email, please feel free to contact me. I'd love to help in any way I can, stay connected. And so there we go. So
thank you so much, everyone, for coming today and sharing your ideas and
thank you so much. I really, it was great to get your comments, to interact and share with you. So thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day. And summer's already started. So so thanks for coming.
And thank you, Marjorie, for your beautiful presentation. This story map is, I think it's just such a beautiful resource. I love it. So
thanks, Philippa. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye. Take good care.
Be well, everyone. Have a good summer.
Bye.